road again. Just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends, and I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again. Going places that I've never been, seeing things that I may never see again, and I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again, like a band of gypsies we go down the highway. We're the best of friends, insisting that the world keeps turning our way, and our way is on the road again. Just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends, and I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again, like a band of gypsies we go down the highway. We're the best of friends, insisting that the world keeps turning our way, and our way is on the road again. Just can't wait to get on the road again. The line on the road again, and I can't wait to get on the road again.
Good morning and welcome to St. Francis. It is good to have you here today. You might notice that I stepped a little closer to the window. It's so that I can see the view you have most Sundays. I can look out that window and you're going to have to look at what I have to see. Except for usually it's full of faces, and so I'm reminding you that I'm getting ready to have you back. The bishop is beginning to tell us how to do that. We're not ready to start back yet. The bishop has not released us yet, but we are making plans of when and how to do all of that. Speaking of the window, let me just make sure that you know that if every once in a while I space out a little bit, it's because there's something really gorgeous out the window. I'm sorry, I've seen you do it during service. If I do it, just forgive me for that bit of time. One other thing, don't forget the classes that we're doing. We have classes all week long if you'd like to go to them. They are on the St. Francis website, and just scroll down to see it says there's a join Pastor Jim button there, and then you can get to the classes. It is good to have you here. Let's begin our celebration time together.
Hold on, Jim.
It smells like Christmas cookies.
I'm recording and I'm muting.
I don't remember specifically seeing it come in, but it could be one of those two. Yeah, no, I thought they both look smaller. Like there's two boxes in there that look like they're smaller than you. So as soon as I get back, I will come over and get the gun again so we can open them up. Okay.
Mine's the tiniest.
Our call to awareness for today is by Wendell Berry. It's from his manifesto, The Mad Farmer Liberation Front, and these are excerpts. So friends, every day do something that won't compute. Give your approval to all you cannot understand. Ask the questions that have no answers. Put your faith in the 2 inches of humus that will build under the trees every 1,000 years. Laugh. Be joyful, though you have considered all the facts. Practice resurrection.
One love, one heart, let's get together. Lord, and I will feel alright. Let's get together and feel alright. People get ready, there's a train a-comin'. One love. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. One heart. All you need is faith to hear those diesels humming. You don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord. One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. As it was in the beginning, one love, so shall it be in the end. One heart, give thanks and praise to the Lord, and I will feel alright. Let's get together and feel alright. People get ready for the train to Jordan. One love, picking up passengers from coast to coast. One heart, faith is the key. Open the doors and board them. There's room for all among the love and lost. One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. One love, one heart. Give thanks and praise to the Lord, and I will feel alright. Let's get together and feel alright. One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. One love, one heart. Give thanks and praise to the Lord, and I will feel alright. Let's get together and feel alright.
It is good to have all your kids right here. It's good to see you again, even though I'm seeing you through the computers. It's been a long time. My hair has grown out quite a bit. I think I might need a haircut. Actually, I just got to tell you, I cut my own hair this week. It's a little short, but I'm doing okay. How are you doing with all this social distancing, all the distance from each other, all the not knowing how to do all the things that we usually do? Are you missing your friends a bit? Are you missing me? Because I'm missing you a lot. I'm glad we get together a little bit. I see the videos of how Claire is beginning to use her legs again. Good job, Claire. I see Cadence doing all kinds of stuff at her house. At Miss Nancy's art class the other day, I saw Ariel and Orion for the very first time. It is so good to be able to see all of you. But we have to figure out how to do things differently in the midst of all this, don't we? You guys are all doing distance learning. You're figuring out how to meet your friends on computers. One of the things that's hard for me is that usually when I talk to you for children's time is we do Katie cans. And nobody's here to collect Katie cans. You can see behind me, it's kind of empty. Now I know that they're saving lots of change so that when we get back together, when we're there in the building all together, they're going to have so many millions of dollars that they'll be happy to give it to you. But until then, we've been doing some other things. Did you hear what we're doing instead of Katie cans? Every Saturday morning, lots of people are bringing peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, not just a couple, but I mean like whole bags full of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in order to feed the folks that usually we go down and feed. So in all these different ways that we're doing things, we're having to discover new ways of doing it. But that's what this kind of time is for. You probably are discovering stuff that you didn't have to discover before. You're probably doing things different. You're probably acting a little bit different. And it doesn't mean we don't want to get back to what's normal, but we also get to figure out what we do new, how we take things to a different level than what we've had before. And so as you go through this time, know my heart is with you, and I hope you discover lots of stuff. Now let's listen to Tom, Lorelei, and Shannon, or as I call them, TLS.
I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. I think I can make it now, the pain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared. Here is the rainbow I've been praying for. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. Look all around, there's nothing but blue skies. Look straight ahead, there's nothing but blue skies. I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. Oh, bright, bright.
As we come to the offering time of our service, it is important to remember that it is because of you that we are able to do things. So every gift you give, everything that you do is important to this church. So thank you for all that you are doing that way. I want to tell you about something that happened this week. As the bishop talked more about coming back online, he also talked about how probably right now our offices should be closed. While Melissa will still be in the office, the doors will be closed, and so you won't be able to go and visit her. But if you need her, call her, text her, just know that she's there and available, but not opening the doors. That will continue till at least May 15th when the bishop has asked us. That's our new deadline there. Now, please remember St. Francis as we give and as we listen to an amazing gift. You know, we've been without our choir for the last little while, but today they're here. And so I give you the St. Francis Choir.
Wade in the water, wade in the water.
as we gather ourselves for a time of prayer together, I invite you to ground yourself, to feel the chair beneath you, the ground beneath your feet. And I invite you to focus on your breath and calm yourself and ground yourself and feel a connection to the Spirit which binds us all together. Let's do this now. Beloveds, when so much of our world is groaning with injustice and destruction and fear, we are invited to turn to God and one another. We are not meant to carry the struggles of the world alone, and so in a spirit of collective embrace, may we share together in prayer all that troubles our hearts. For all of the bodies in suffering, deprived of resources, withheld from care, or made into targets of violence. Loving God, hear our prayers. For all whose spirits are in despair, for those who are facing loss or grief, particularly those who are feeling isolated, for those who may be struggling to accept their own worth. Loving God, hear our prayers. For all of the ways that power is wielded over communities and individuals, for those living under oppressive forces, for the temptation towards complicity with injustice, and for the ways that the church sometimes uses you, O God, as a weapon rather than a tool for healing and liberation. Loving God, hear our prayers. For those in our community, for those in our wider world, who are in need of connection, who are suffering from health issues, for all in need of prayer and connection and support and love. Loving God, hear our prayers. But just as we are not meant to shoulder the world's pain alone, we are equally invited to delight with one another in the joy that sustains us. And so, as we look around and outside our windows, we look and we see and we give thanks for the beauty that grows around us. Loving God, we give you thanks for the new ways that we share meals and community and relationships, and the new ways that those transform us and sustain us. Loving God, we give you thanks for art and music and stories and truths that we still are able to hear, that foster love and connection. Loving God, we give you thanks for every source of courage in the face of all that makes us afraid. Loving God, we give you thanks for your presence within us and around us in our highs and lows, our hopes and our despair. Loving God, we give you thanks. hear our prayers, and deepen our willingness to show up with and for one another in new ways, sharing each other's burdens and working for one another's protection and care. We lift up all of these prayers in your holy name. Amen.
A reading from Luke, chapter 24, verses 28 through 35. As Cleopas and the other disciples came near the village to which they were going, Jesus walked ahead as if he was going on. But they urged him strongly, saying, "Stay with us, because it's almost evening and the day is now nearly over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, blessed it, and broke it, and gave it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he vanished from their sight. They said to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he was talking to us on the road, while he was opening the scriptures to us?" That very same hour they got up, returned to Jerusalem, and found 11 and their companions gathered together. They were saying, "The Lord has risen indeed, and he appeared to Simon." Then they told what had happened on the road and how he had been made known to them in the breaking of the bread.
Who recognized that last week I didn't quite get us to the end of the story? I left you out there with Cleopas and with the other disciple on the road to Emmaus, listening to some crazy guy who showed us that what we thought was true might not be as real or as powerful as it seemed. But in the midst of a moment, perspectives often get skewed. That which is happening around us, which seems so important to right now, sometimes hides that larger picture. And it's hard to see anything but what's different, what's difficult, what's unwanted that's right in front of us. I saw a very interesting video this week of a music teacher who was trying to process the transition to distance learning. And she was a very soft-spoken woman. And so I turned it up a little bit, and she's playing on a ukulele, and it's very pretty. And all of a sudden she gets to the vocal part, and she just screams as loud as she can. And it just made me laugh, because that's kind of what I feel like, is that sometimes I just see that problem and I don't see right now the solution. But when we go from one phase to another, as one thing starts that's different than what it was, the rules always change. And so that confuses our hearts, and it makes those screams emerge. The struggles to understand and to live in the new moment often come because we're trying to comprehend it, and our presets, things that we already know, just don't allow us to easily do that. The paradigms, the understandings that we used to have, the perceptions of how life runs, get in the way of the right now, how they need to run. Many of you have taken the Myers-Briggs test, as have I, and on that test, I score way out to the edges in 3 out of the 4 things, but on one, the thinking feeling scale, I score right in the middle. And as I've gone through my life, and I've gone through the transitions, I've watched myself shift sometimes to the thinking side, sometimes to the feeling side. When I went from Argentina to college, it went from feeling over to the thinking side. When I went from college to first grade, it shifted back again. Teaching to studenting at seminary, from education to pastoring, each time it's changed slightly how I see things. Each one made me have to rethink, and maybe more importantly, reperceive, redefine, and even reimagine life and myself in that moment. When I went to seminary, I had to figure out how to change from short first grade sentences to those long theological sentences they use in those books. Because what's real in the past setting doesn't work in the present. Both the experiential and the intellectual are important, and our story in Luke talks about both of those. Both are wonderful ways of perceiving the world, as well as the people and events in it, but they often work at cross purposes. Luke 24, the story of Emmaus, starts at the experiential. The disciples going, we don't know what's going on, we don't understand it, this is what we experienced and we don't know what to do. And Jesus shifted them to the intellectual and said, haven't you heard? And he showed them what it said in the scriptures about this moment. And I'm not certain that his intellectual presentation completely penetrated the cloud of fear and doubt and uncertainty that Cleopas and the other disciple found themselves in. And I'm not sure that it should have. For Jesus and his disciples had passed through quite a long time of a lot of intellectual, where he was teaching and helping them to see better. And his teachings and their learnings drew them to a wonderful space. But the page turned, and suddenly they were in a new space, and something else was called for. And so as Cleopas and the other disciple, as Cleopas and I came near to the village to which we were going, Jesus said, it's time for me to leave you. It's time for me to go. And every disciple has to decide what happens in that moment. And he walked as if he were leaving, and those 2 disciples, as we should, invited him to stay, invited the presence to be there with them still. They urged him strongly, stay with us in this moment. And so he went in to stay with them. When life takes a turn, as it has for us in these few months, as life goes from one phase to the next, our challenge is that we want to hold on to what we already know. But in this moment, we all need to social distance from the fridge a little bit so that we, redefine the curve a bit. But we also need to look at other things. How is it that in this moment we need to choose differently than what we have chosen before? We want to go back to what's easy, what's defined us before, but that won't define us in this moment. We have to choose this next moment. We have to re-examine our lives in light of what's gone on. We have to decide what is it that's applicable as we move forward. We have to look at the challenges, of the questions, and maybe even more importantly, the answers that have been given to us. Some that we like, some that we're not as sure of. And we have to decide, which do we hold on to? The different ones, the baffling ones, or do we just go back to what's the easiest? The choir saying we have to wade into the water. We have to go into that space where we don't have complete control and not be afraid of the moment. To know that in this moment, this time when something's different, that it can also be God leading us towards something. Where you have been living, whatever that is, will always be more graspable, will always be more attainable, will always be easier to understand. But the Spirit always leads us to that which in the moment seems more nebulous, ununderstandable, and confusing to us, hard to define. Because the Spirit leads us into the difficult world of trusting beyond ourselves and trusting each other in the midst of that. Trusting each other in a spiritually broad world of how God works and where God is drawing us. And so many want to go back and say, let's just use what we have done. But those who are trying to hear Spirit move towards what can be. Wendell Berry said, every day do something that won't compute. Ask questions that have no answers. Put your faith in 2 inches of hummus that will build under the trees every 1,000 years. Practice resurrection. See, all of those things are undefinable from what we really understand because they're longer view issues. But as the trio sang, people get ready. There's a train a-coming, and it's going to lead us somewhere. It's going to lead us towards that which can and should be, but we have to get ready to change and get on board. And we don't do that because we understand it. We do that precisely because we don't understand it. We do something that won't compute because we know that there's more understanding than what we already have. We practice resurrection not because we know what life beyond this life is, but because we know that God will draw us towards that more than life. Will draw us deeper into the depths of what life can give us and draw us deeper into relationship that we thought we already knew, but that now can give us new definitions and new ideas. At the table, Jesus took bread. He blessed it and he broke it and he gave it to those disciples. And suddenly in that moment, in that bread, that undefinable, what happened again. Jesus was real to them again. Even though they knew his death, even though they saw him gone, suddenly he was back and present with them. And so they ran back to Jerusalem. And that slow journey that they made with Jesus to get there took them a very short time, relatively, to get back. So they could go to the other disciples and say, hey, listen to what's happened to us. And when they got there, they heard similar stories from the other disciples. Something's different. That which we thought was true, that death which seems to be the only answer, isn't the only answer. Jesus is still present. God is still present. Spirit is still working beyond what it is that we understand. In this moment that we're going through, this moment that seems so undefinable to us because we have so little control. What we have to know is that something wondrous is happening. We feel the limitations, the difficulties, the depth of what coronavirus has given to us. We know what social isolation feels like it's doing to our souls, and what it's telling us is true. But something more is always true. What this moment has told us isn't the final story. Just like in that communion, Jesus was revealed to those two disciples. In our communion, once again, Jesus, God, Spirit can become real. I don't know how you're going to experience God today, but in your place, with whatever it is that you're using, find how God is present as the Raggedy Band sings to us. In this bread, we find once again the presence of the one we love. In this juice, we find life once again here among us. Even as we are separated, we come together, we eat together, we discover Spirit once again connecting us. Amen. And now go into that world where maybe you're stuck in a small corner of it. But know that the story is larger. Know that you will not be held there forever. Listen for the voice that will be revealed in the breaking of the bread, or maybe in the retelling of the story. listen once again and hear the voice of God speak, and then go and tell it to each other. Amen?
Open my eyes that I may see glimpses of truth thou hast for me. Open my eyes, illumine me, Spirit divine. Love of my life, I am crying, I am not dying, I am dancing, dancing along in the madness. There is no sadness, only the song of the soul, and we'll sing a song. Why don't you sing along? And we can sing for a long, long time. Why don't you sing a song? Why don't you sing along? And we can sing for a long, long time. What do you do for a living? Are you forgiving, giving shelter? Follow your heart, love will find you, truth will unbind you. Sing out a song of the soul, and we'll sing a song. Why don't you sing along? And we can sing for a long, long time. Why don't you sing a song? Why don't you sing along? And we can sing for a long, long time. Come to your life like a warrior, nothing will bore you, you can be happy. Light in the light, it will heal you, and you can feel you. Sing out a song of the soul, and we'll sing a song. Why don't you sing along? And we can sing for a long, long time. Why don't you sing a song? Why don't you sing along? And we can sing for